Imagine if you only had 24 hours to live. Would you spend that time really intentionally? That limit makes that time more valuable. So if anything, it's seeing like the cap on our money as making every single one of your dollars so much more valuable. Because if we only have $100 to spend, what are you going to spend it on?
I wanted to mix things up a bit here on the show. Welcome to Talking Money Unfiltered, where we grab a headline, a hot take, or whatever's sparking real conversation right now. Scarlett, welcome back to the show. What's on your mind?
I've been having lots of conversations with people recently, like whether they're my clients or just like everyday conversations with people. And there's this one theme that keeps coming to mind. And that's like, when is it the difference between money mindset and like money circumstances? There's so many people who are stressed about money, who feel like they need more money, who feel like whatever they're trying, it's not working. And so how can we really tell the difference between if this is a circumstance that's happening with the money, or is this like a money mindset thing? And then how do you actually move forward and do something about it? Like how do you grow from that?
I feel like most people would say, well, my circumstance is determining my mindset, or vice versa, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think I notice a lot of people just kind of chalking things up to circumstances, and that's kind of the default. It's like, oh, well, this is just the case and I can't do anything about it, or I can't control the price of coffee, I can't control the price of rent, I can't control how much I'm making. So I feel like the circumstance is the assumption, and there's also this idea of, well, we can't do anything about it. And so I think recognizing the mindset piece is important, and then how to tell what is the impact that the mindset is having on the circumstances.
Yeah, if you're bringing up things that are out of our control, like the price of coffee or all of that, it is very easy to just go throw our hands up and say, well, forget it. There's nothing I can do about it. And either it's a woe is me, I can no longer buy my coffee, or I don't care, I'm buying my coffee in spite of the price of it. Are you finding that that's kind of the direction, is that we stick our heads in the sand, or we throw our hands up?
Yeah, I think this is really the question is like, what do you think is in our control and what's not in our control? And I think this is where mindset starts to tie in, because it's true, there are some things that we can't control, but at the same time we can have control over how we respond to those things, how we make choices around those things. And it's kind of the same with life, right? Like you can't always control when things happen, like when your car breaks down, but you can control how you respond to it. So I'm curious to know, like, what do you imagine are the things that are in people's control versus not in our control? And how do we separate the two? And what's the benefit of doing that?
That's actually a hard question to answer, because there's a lot of things with money that aren't in our control. We could say, well, I control how much money I make. But if you're in a salary job, your salary is dictated. You can negotiate, right? But at the end of the day, you can advocate for yourself and negotiate and show the research as to why you should have a higher salary. But that's the most we can do. The ultimate decision is in someone else's hands. Then you can say, well, I'll find another job that pays me more and have more money come in, or I'll start a side hustle and have more money come in that way. So that's where you have some more control. But then also the market will tell you what your side hustle determines is a fair price. So, you could say, well, I'm going to charge $5,000 for XYZ, but if no one's buying it, that's telling us that maybe the price is off a little bit. So we have some control, but not ultimate control. And then if we go conversely of how much money is going out, again, some things we have control over, but some things we don't. Right now it is 100 degrees where I live, and everyone's talking about our ACs just aren't working. Like the temperature we want our air conditioning set at is not the temperature it's producing. Why is that? Our electric bills are going to be out of our control. A lot of our utilities, we can do things by turning off the lights, making the temperature a little bit higher, but we can't control the weather. We can't control how hard um, our air conditioning, for example, is going to be working for us. So there's some things that are in our control and some things that aren't. We're telling our kids all the time to turn off the lights when you leave a room. So we try to control our bill that way. But then also gas for our cars. We can control ish how much we drive, which then has control over how much gas we put in our cars, but we can't control the price of it. So it is kind of interesting how much control ish we have over our money. Is that kind of where you were thinking, or tell me where you were kind of going with this?
Yeah, I think it is really interesting because in so many ways we can kind of surrender our control and say, oh, well, I don't have control over this price. I can't control the weather. I can't control like what I'm getting paid at my salary job, really. But at the same time, it's interesting because we can take a step back and see the ways that we still have power and control and choice in those situations and circumstances. Like for example, like you said, okay, you could get a different job, right? Like you have control over being in that job, or maybe like rent, like I can't control the rent here. Like you could actually choose to go live somewhere else in the world with different rent. And so it's interesting because even though there are things that seem very set in stone and are out of our control, like we do have the power of choice to choose something different from what is already there. And we do have control over how we respond to those things, which I think starts to tie into the mindset piece is how do you respond to it? And I think where I see people getting stuck or where this conversation starts to turn is like, okay, yeah, I'm in control. Yes, I could move, but what if I don't want to move? Like, what if I want to live here? I don't want to sacrifice moving. Or, oh, what if yes, I don't want to pay as much for electric bill, but I don't want to sacrifice my cold air. Or yeah, I don't want to pay as much for the price of coffee going up, but I don't want to sacrifice my coffee. So I'm curious, like, how does the idea of sacrifice tie into all of this, and is it like a beneficial thought process to see what we're in control of versus not in control of?
There's a lot of things we don't have control over, but we can choose whether we play in the sandbox or not, right? Like we may not like our rent price, or we may say that's expensive. We can't control how much we are paying for rent in our for our home, but we can choose I'm going to accept it or I'm not. I'm going to continue paying it because this is where I want to live, or I'm not going to accept it. I want to pay less and I'm going to move somewhere else, whether it's down the street or across the country to get cheaper rent. So that's interesting that there's a lot of things we cannot control the outside environment, right? We can't control these outside factors, but then we can choose if we want it part of our life or not. And I think that's where the power comes in, is that we need to realize a lot of things are a choice, and we need to start realizing what is a choice and what isn't, because we can again feel like my rent is being dictated to me. This is what I have to pay, and get into that kind of maybe negative mindset if we're not happy with it. But then ultimately, it could be a choice that you are choosing to pay that high rent in that example.
Yeah, and I think this is why it's so important to actually focus on the mindset piece because we need the healthy mindset in order to navigate what's in our control versus not in our control, because it's kind of easy to slip into this mindset of, oh, well, I can't control it and it's just the way it is and there's nothing I can do about it and this is just the way I'm have to live my life, when the reality is it's like you actually do have a lot of choice. It might not be what you really desire. You might not want to like sleep in your car instead of pay rent, but at the same time like recognizing that that is a choice that you could make, and allowing that to fuel you and be the power. And I have also had this conversation so many times with people about the idea of sacrifice versus the idea of choice. And instead of feeling like, oh, I have to sacrifice and I don't want to sacrifice these things that I want, instead tapping into, well, what are you choosing? What are you choosing as a result? Like, if, and especially if we start to look in an either or way, like, what is really most important to you? Is it your Starbucks coffee every single day? Or is it like living where you want to live? Is it working really hard and like making sure you're making lots of money? Or is it, you know, spending less money on shopping and being able to work a little less? And so, like, starting to prioritize what's really most important to you and step into the mindset of choice. And can that change the circumstances when you do that?
That's a powerful reframing of this whole situation, right? And use any example. We've mentioned rent a couple of times, coffee, even groceries, right? If we go talk to anyone, walk to someone on the street and say, what do you think of what's going on with grocery prices, right? Not even with, aren't grocery prices so high? What's your feeling on grocery prices? I would be shocked if there was anything positive to say about grocery prices, right? Like, it's, everything is so expensive, it's going up in price, it's crazy. We need to eat to live, right? We have to eat food to live. There's no question about that. So we have to buy food one way or another, whether it's at a restaurant or to go or grocery shop and cook for ourselves. So that feels like an uncontrollable situation. We have no control over it. And correct, we have no control over the fact that we need nutrients and vitamins and all of that to live. But if you change the mindset of it, like what you're alluding to, if we change the mindset of it and start to make choices, no matter what choices you make, odds are you are probably paying more for groceries today than you were a year ago, than 5 years ago. But if we say the price of eggs is super expensive right now, and I'm just using this for an example, I do think prices are starting to come down on eggs. And I know there's Trader Joe's, I was there yesterday, is no longer rationing the eggs. We can now buy as many as we want. Before, they were limiting us to 1 dozen. But if we say, well, I usually eat eggs and the price of eggs is going up, instead of continuing to buy eggs and complaining about it and having this terrible feeling about every time you go for groceries, okay, well, the price of eggs is expensive right now. I eat eggs because it's protein and it fills me up. What's a more cost-friendly alternative to eggs? And I think that that's a way to reframe and still have control over the food that's going into your body, but now it's a choice. And now we're thinking about it. We're having more control over where our money is going. And I think just having more power in the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because the next thought process that I see a lot of people have is like, but I don't want to sacrifice my eggs, right? Like, I don't want to have to choose. And it's kind of like unfair that I have to. And it's interesting because I think getting into that sacrificing mindset, even though we could look at that and say, like, yeah, that's true. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your eggs. But at the same time, it's like that sacrificing mentality is energetically draining. Like, it really drains you energetically to be living in a world where you feel like you have to constantly sacrifice, instead of saying, like, how important are eggs to me? Like, am I willing to maybe cut out some other stuff that's less important so I can keep affording the eggs? Or are eggs really not that important? And yeah, I am willing to get a little creative here to not to find an alternative instead. And I think what's also important is, not only is this like lack mindset draining emotionally, mentally, energetically, I think it also limits you from seeing the other possibilities that are here. Because I also think that there are other alternatives to these default circumstances that are actually way better and are kind of like win-win-win situations, but you just don't know that they exist. And it's really hard for you to find them or see them if you're in like scarcity or sacrificing mentality. Like, for example, I, for the past 3 or 4 years now, save up all year to get a CSA. That's like a community shared agriculture farm share, which I didn't even know was a thing a couple years ago. But basically, like, you go to a local farm and you basically buy a share of the produce that they're going to produce for the year. And so you pay a large amount up front, and then you just have 24 weeks of produce for the whole entire season. And so even though it's like a large upfront amount, the math balances out to like $32 a week for 24 weeks of tons of produce. And so then when I do go to the grocery store, I'm only buying like some of the things here and there. Like, I'm buying rice and grains and eggs and things that I'm not getting from my farm share. But it's like, it's so much more affordable. It's local, it's organic, it's right. Like, it's actually checking all the boxes that I desire, and it's cheaper. And so I think there's actually a lot of options like that. It's just you have to be in the right mindset in order to find them. And one other example I want to throw in here too is like, yes, we need to eat to live, but like, you could garden, like you could grow your own food, and then you wouldn't have to pay as much money for food. And it's like, yes, you would have to dedicate time and energy into that, but recognizing that that's still a choice and that it could be worthwhile to just have your own homegrown food and put the effort in there so you don't have to put the money in somewhere else.
To your initial point, it does suck if we have to give up our eggs, right? If it's getting so expensive but it's a source of frustration every single time. Like, that sucks. Like, that, no one's saying that's not terrible, right? But or if you say no, I'm unwilling to give up my eggs for breakfast because I enjoy them and they fill me up and all of that, and I don't want to find something else to replace it, then it's a choice, and you are taking control over that situation because you're choosing it. You know that there's other less expensive options out there, but you're choosing the eggs. Now we just have to be in the mindset of, that's where we get to the, well, it is what it is, right? We went through that mental journey of, I recognize my eggs are expensive. There are alternatives, but I'm still choosing to buy the eggs. So I can be annoyed-ish that they're going up in price, but at the end of the day, I'm the one choosing to continue buying them because, to me, the pro of it fills me up, I enjoy it, I like making them, all the pros outweigh the con of they're getting more expensive, or I'm getting rationed on how many I can buy at the grocery store, or whatever it is. And then, just like with your example with the CSA, like, I have a garden, and right now my garden is getting scorched because it's so hot outside. That stinks. I'm upset about that. But to me, being stressed out about my cucumber leaves getting totally fried is worth the organic, no pesticides, I have control over what I'm eating. To me, that's worth it. And are my cucumbers cheaper than the grocery store? I'll probably have to do the math and figure it out. But when one cucumber is like $2, like, yeah, it probably is, because that cucumber plant costs me a couple of bucks, and that's producing at least a dozen cucumbers for me. There is choice. There still are choices. I think there's less control and more choices, but the mindset about it is, I think, where we need to change and give ourselves a little bit more credit in the fact of, we do have more control and we are making choices. And I think that that's the powerful part, is that we need to realize we are taking control of some things.
Yeah, yeah. And I think really stepping into that mindset and energy of like having the power, having the control is a really empowering place to live. And it totally changes the way that you live your life. And so, really, the next question and the next thought process that I have is, well, can we feel content and satisfied with where we are, even if it might not be the biggest end goal? Like maybe you do want more for your life. Maybe you do want to travel more and you don't want to have to, budget for a long time leading up to that travel. Maybe you wish you could just say yes to everything without having to quote sacrifice anything or choose anything. And so, yes, how can we work towards that? But at the same time, I really feel like the solution is to feel that level of satisfaction and abundance with where you're currently at, because the truth is like life isn't perfect. It's like this idea of I want to live every day feeling 100% happy and good all the time, and nothing's ever going to go wrong, and I'm never going to feel bad, and no one's ever going to die, right? Like, and we have this expectation of like happiness is just imperfection, but perfection doesn't exist, and in life there's going to be ups and downs. And so really it's the how do we respond to those, how do we feel good even in the highs and lows, because the highs and lows are inevitable, and how do we bring that same energy into our money? How can we feel so good about all of the choices that we're making, even if some of those choices are made based on circumstances around us?
You mentioned sacrifice versus choice, and now being content. Can we be content if we know we're sacrificing?
I think if we shift from the perspective of sacrifice to choice, and we say this is a conscious decision, right? It's not like I was forced to sacrifice. It's like if I line up every single thing that I'm spending money on and I say these are the priorities and I list them in order, and you say, you know what, I'm choosing to prioritize what's most important. And if that means that coffee gets the boot and I stop drinking coffee out and I start drinking coffee at home, and that's a choice that I'm making. And also, you know what? I'm going to get really creative and make my at home coffee even better than my going out coffee. Like, I think that's how we can reach that satisfaction, is to shift out of sacrificing mindset and into choice mindset, even if it might not be the choice you really want to be making. Like, how can you find that within yourself to see that you do, this is the choice you're desiring to make?
And if you think about day to day, if you just start to implement that mindset of I'm making choices, um, I may not I may not love the situation, but it's still a choice. And even, I say a lot, inaction is still an action. Inaction is still a choice. It's still a decision. You're still making a decision. So by switching the mindset of I'm still making choices and not all of this stuff is happening to me, that can really just change. I mean, it's a muscle I think that you need to develop, right? But that just having that foundation of choices already, I think you have to feel more positive from that. Like it already is just becoming more of a positive. It's still the same scenario. Grocery prices are still high. We're still paying, a lot for our electric, but it just becomes more positive.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, do you have any examples of this in your life where you feel like you've had to sacrifice in some areas, or like what do you choose with your money? What do you prioritize, even if there's highs and lows financially?
I have 4 children, so like the grocery conversation really hits home. Like I loathe grocery shopping. I really do. I don't do it frequently. I go and I get a huge haul, and then I come back and my pantry is overflowing, my fridge is overflowing, and I do that one because of my capacity of time. I don't have time to just let me stop and pick up a couple of things. the parking lots. Like I hate the parking lots. I hate the self-checkout. There's so many things about it. I could go on and on about everything I dislike about grocery shopping. And then I'm the one emptying out my car because who knows where. And then my children say they're going to help me and then they end up disappearing. There's so many things I could talk about with what I dislike about grocery shopping. But I do not ever go, which I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't ever go with a list because I look at what the prices are. If you go with a list, I have to buy this, I have to buy that, I have to buy that. You're restricted to your list, right? It doesn't give you that flexibility. Or like if I'm making a recipe, if I'm going to a party and I enjoy making recipes, but it's like, dang, that dip just cost me $35 to make because you need to have the specific things in that recipe. So I never go with a list. I know what everyone likes and I'll get things, but I may go in wanting to get certain fruits. But if I look at the prices and I'm like, no, like that's too expensive, we have to pivot. And we're getting a bunch of bananas instead of grapes because bananas are less expensive right now compared to grapes. Or I'm not paying $9 for a pint of organic blueberries, so we have to pivot and get something else. So I'm constantly making those decisions, and that might be why I don't like grocery shopping because I feel like my mind is always going. I feel that every time is okay. Well, I would like this, but then I look at it and I have to make a decision, and then I move on. Yes, I can get it. No, I can't. Or I'll buy things that are on sale or are a good price and go, okay, great. That is what we're going to have for dinner. That's going to be one of our meals this week. I don't meal prep. I don't do any of that because I feel like that puts you into a box of this is what I have to buy. So conversely, it does make dinners difficult because I don't have a plan. When everyone asks me what's for dinner tonight, it's good question. We're all going to find out together because I don't know. I'm going to open up the fridge or open up the pantry and see what we're working with. By not planning helps me to have more control of what's going out as far as groceries are concerned.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? Because if you had to stick with like these specific things, then you're like choosing the item over the price, and then you're just succumbing to whatever the price is. So yeah, like having that flexibility in there. I think there is this balance though of like that structure and that flow, because I have found when I go into a grocery store and I have no idea, then I feel like I get things that like don't go together, and then stuff might get wasted or unused, or versus when I have like a loose plan, not a set in stone, like this is exactly what I'm getting for this recipe, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to do one meal that's like a mixture of vegetables with a grain, and I'm going to do another meal that's like a pasta something, and then I'm like thinking within these buckets and areas, then I'm making sure like everything is getting used, and like everything that I'm getting is part of some kind of purpose, or like checking some kind of box, like like okay, I'm getting some kind of fruit, like that's the loose list. And then like that way things don't get wasted, or you're not just buying extra stuff for no reason, so it's kind of that balance of structure and flow. And I think that ties in with money in general really well too. Like you have to have some kind of structure with your money, but then within that there has to be that space so that you can flow within it. I mean, like my own example of how this totally ties into my life, going back to this conversation of choice over sacrifice, for me has been in like where I spend large amounts of money in my life. Like my priority has been my business for the past 5 years. Like business and travel take number one. And so I am willing to invest a lot of money in the growth of my business, a lot of money in like my future, and more money in being able to travel and connect with people and develop in personal growth. Like those have been where I'm willing to spend a lot of money. And at the same time, I drive an older car. Like my car is from 2003, and I buy clothes from Savers, So it's like I'm sacrificing in other areas, but really I'm just choosing what is most important to me. And you could look at that and be like, suffering with this old car, like this is horrible, but at the same time I can look at that and just be like, it's great, like I'm choosing exactly what's most important to me and prioritizing. And then if I'm doing that, it's easier for me to spend less on groceries, spend less on clothes and shopping, spend less on car, because I know I'm choosing the things that are most important to me. So kind of like same with your grocery store. Like, do you feel like if you're choosing the things that are most important, like you're buying the things that you want the most, that it balances out? If you have to sacrifice in other areas, like how does that tie into this example?
Well, I just again using the microcosm of the grocery store, we're all getting fed. We're all getting our treat, we're all getting things we like. Our stomachs are always full at the end of the day, right? And so the job's getting done. I'm doing my job of, as the mother, making sure everyone's fed and happy and they have some treats here and there. But I'll make decisions like I don't buy um, individually wrapped stuff. So the goldfish, the Cheez-Its, the chips, I do not buy individually wrapped stuff because if you look at cost per, so I'll look at when I grew, I should probably like record like my just think out loud during one of my grocery trips because someone would be like, holy mackerel, that is a lot of thinking. But I'll look at the ounce, like what is the cost? Because if you look at the price tag on items, every item, it shows you a cost per ounce. And so if you look at the cost per ounce per individually wrapped snack or the regular size box, you're paying more cost per ounce than for the wrapped snack than the box. So it's like, well, I'm just going to buy the box and then use my reusable cups that we put the lid on and put that in there. And then that goes in the lunchbox or that's the snack for the day. So and we're not sacrificing anything. My kid's still getting the Cheez-Its or whatever it is, but it's costing me less money to do it. And it's also better for the environment, less trash, all of that stuff as well that I feel passionately about. But it's just making those choices. Again, having the control over that situation of, I know my kid's going to need snack for summer camp. I know they're going to want Cheez-Its. I could, just go, oh, well, it's easier for me to buy it pre-wrapped and pay more money for it. Or it's more cost effective for me to do this and take the 10 seconds and buy the bulk size, put it in the container and off we go. So that's kind of the thought process is we're not going without, we're just making pivots. We're just making slight changes. There are some things that I buy that it doesn't matter what the price is. I'm buying them, like organic milk. I'm buying that. Eggs, I do, we do buy eggs. Generally, I buy brown eggs that are, free range, but sometimes I have to buy the cage free instead of the free range because there is a difference and because it's a little bit less expensive. I feel good knowing my cart's full, my house is going to be full. I'm still not going to love the price of it all at the end of the day, but I knew I did what I could do to make things manageable, the cost of it all manageable. And to your point with the car, you're choosing where to spend your money and it's not on a car. But what if you like had a weak moment and you're like, well, you're right. My car is old, quote unquote, or, and it's like compared to what compared to everyone else. Yeah, right. Because everyone has leases and they're getting new cars every couple of years. So they don't even own it. But okay, fine. My car is old. I'm going to get a new one. But then that means that's $500-600 less money a month for 5 years that you have to invest in your business, which then could end up costing you tens of thousands of dollars, if not $100,000 throughout your lifetime, right? Because instead you chose to buy the car. And so I love that example because I agree with that. I have, for a long time drove a car that even I still have it to this day solely for the purpose of, I know my kids are going to beat it up. It's going to get trashed and that's okay. Like it is real. Realizing that you do have so much more choice than you realize that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love this example too that you gave in the grocery store of like there are some things that are the priority things, right? Like I'm always going to buy eggs because eggs are important. So it's like in within the microcosms of these things like in the grocery store, in rent, in this, in that, but then in the broader view of your life, like what are the priority things like business travel for me, right? And so what are the things you are unwilling to sacrifice on, and where can you have like leeway to find the opportunities that are the better case scenario? So like with the Cheez-Its, it's like, okay, I have a choice now between convenience and saving a little bit of time or saving a little bit of money, and that's the decision. And so recognizing like those are areas where I'm willing to choose the thing that removes the convenience. It might take a little bit longer for me to divvy it up, but at the same time, I'm going to save more money. And I think the other challenge that comes from things like that is you have to have a certain level of financial strategy and financial savviness in order to actually take advantage of the more affordable option. Because, for example, like with my CSA, yeah, it's only $32 a week in produce, which is super affordable, super easy. And at the same time, I have to pay almost $800 up front to buy that. And so there are so many people who might be like, $800? I can't afford that. But the reality is like if you were able to, be savvy with your money and like pay more upfront, buy in bulk, then it actually will be cheaper in the long run too. So I think there's like a certain level of logic that has to come into this because you might not notice it inherently at first. You might just be like 800, I can't afford that, no way, versus doing the math of like, oh, right, actually this bigger box of Cheez-Its seems more expensive, but the price per ounce is actually so much more affordable. And then from there, just deciding like what are the priorities and then feeling good in those choices, feeling good in those decisions. And I think really what it comes down to is knowing for every single individual, like what is most important to you at the end of the day. When you look at every single line item of your budget, every single item or category that you spend money on, like what really are the most important things to you? And then within that, like what are the priorities within that? And when you can get really clear on what you value, then your choice becomes powerful, even if that means some things are at the bottom of the list.
And this is definitely a muscle that you have to work, right? We're not just
Mm-hmm.
going to wake up after listening to this episode. The audience is not just going to go, okay, everything's a choice. And also another point to your CSA, the mental load that's off of you that's also something to consider. You don't have to go to the grocery store for your produce, right? That you don't have to hop in the car. You don't have to fight traffic. You don't have to use gas to get there. I pay for Instacart, which, that's a subscription. And I know everything subscriptions are bad, but that money I spend, and yes, I know the groceries are a little bit more expensive. I know these things. That's also a choice of it's saving me from getting in the car, driving, the exhaustion of it. So yes, I'm going to buy the bulk Cheez-Its and make my own snacks because that helps supplement my Instacart subscription each year too. Or the money I saved on my groceries, I'm going to get that bottle of wine. So it's all about give and take. But how can we start to exercise this muscle so then the realizing we're making choices becomes second nature, and we don't have to feel like a victim of our circumstance and feel like we're sacrificing, but realize no, we are making choices and feel more empowered.
Yeah, and that's such a great question because I think the first step to this is really bringing awareness to the choices that you're already making every single day and just recognizing every time you spend money on anything, what are you spending it on and why? What is the motivation or the thought process or even the mentality behind those choices? Is it, well, I'm spending on rent because I want to live here and I need a roof over my head? Is it, I'm spending this much on electric because I'm choosing to, use the AC or not? Or, okay, am I buying my coffee from Starbucks because I'm really tired and I need this energy and it's just too much effort to make it at home? Or maybe it's just like satisfying this guilty pleasure, or it's just a habit. But like recognizing what are you already choosing with your money every single day, and just start to list out in your head like why is this the thing you're choosing. And another like example that I love to use that I feel like encompasses this idea is, imagine if you only had 24 hours to live. If you just had one day to live and you only had 24 hours, would you spend that time really intentionally and be like, I'm going to use all 24 of those hours really consciously and really choose what's most important to me? I'm going to spend some of it with family. I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go do these things that are important. I'm going to eat like really good food. I'm going to take a nap. Like, you're going to prioritize what is most important to you because there is a limit. If anything, that limit makes that time more valuable versus when you like have an infinite amount of time to live and you spend a lot of it like watching Netflix and doing things you don't want to do, right? You just kind of like waste it. You like bleed that time. So if anything, it's seeing like the cap on our money as making every single one of your dollars so much more valuable. Because if we only have $100 to spend, what are you going to spend it on? And the choices you make in that is really powerful. So I think awareness is the first step.
You said looking at your money as finite. You only have so much. You can always make more and all that, but at this moment in time, there's only so much money you have. And if you look at where your money is being spent and a percentage of that, like if I look at my usage on my phone and it says, Shari, you spent an hour today on Facebook. And it's like, I only have 24 hours in my day and I chose to spend an hour of that on Facebook. Like what was I thinking? If you look at your money the same way of you have this much and you spent 5%, 10%, whatever it is of your money on X, was that a good, are you happy with that choice? And again, you could say, yep, that was a great choice. At that period of time, I feel very confident and I'm glad that I didn't. Or no, I could have done better. I should have done better, or I should have spent it differently. And again, just thinking about it, it doesn't have to be this painstaking exercise. It's just a brief reflection. And then also realizing you're not a bad person because you did it. I'm not a bad person. If my phone tells me I spent an hour on Facebook today, that doesn't make me bad. It is what it is. And we use this information for decisions going forward. And I think that that's what we also need to realize with our money, is that we use it. Take this information, it's all data going forward. Do I want to keep repeating this process, or do I want to maybe change it up a little bit? And that's
Right.
where the control and the choice comes in.
Yeah, and it's not like beating yourself up about it if you feel like you're making mistakes. Just like you talked about, it's just like data. How can I just learn from this and be more and more intentional and conscious with the choices that I am making? And I also believe too, like when you think about your money in this way and you're really conscious and intentional and you very consciously like put your money towards what's most important to you, and you're strategic about how you stretch your money in other areas, and you're aware of the amount that you have and you make sure that that amount you have goes far, then like that opens up the space for more to come in. Like I really believe that money enjoys being used intentionally and consciously and strategically. And if you're able to check all your boxes and hit your core priorities and enjoy your life and feel satisfied with the amount of money you currently have and feel good in that, then you're able to do that with more. I also feel like if you feel stressed kind of with the money that you have, it never feels like enough, it's never going far enough, you're not able to do the things you want to do, you already feel like you're sacrificing, then when you get more money, you're still going to do the same thing. It's still not going to feel like enough. You're still going to be in the same patterns, the same habits, the same mindset. And so I think that's also important, is to develop this habit now with the money that you have. That way, when you do bring more money in, that money still goes further and you can still feel solid with that.